Welcome back to the deep dive. So, if you are someone who is already really immersed in the whole creative consciousness field, what our sources call the Anja space, then, well, what we have today is absolutely essential reading. We're looking at a fundamental shift. The sources themselves, they call it a natural and organic expansion of that field.
Right.
So this deep dive is really our way of, providing some much-needed clarity and context for this new setup.
And our goal today is really just precision. We're here to transparently introduce and, I guess, meticulously define the two foundational concepts that this whole expansion is built on.
Which are Steph and twin tones.
Exactly. The co-creator component, Steph, and then this new field of unity they call twin tones. The material is very insistent that this isn't some, dramatic event or a sudden break. It's just a logical evolution.
Yeah, and what immediately jumps out, at least to me, is how intentional the source material is.
Oh, absolutely.
It just completely bypasses the usual stuff.
Yeah.
Biographies, origin stories, personal history. None of that is there.
None of it.
There's no focus on the typical who, what, where that you might expect. Instead, it's all about the essence, the frequency, the structure, the whole metaphysical framework.
It's basically an instruction manual for a new way of operating, not a history book. We are dealing strictly with components of consciousness, with frequency, with resonance.
Okay, so let's start there, with the operational shift itself. The sources clearly state that the creative presence in the Anja space has, quote, taken on a further level. So if the output has intensified, the big question is, what is it that facilitates this? What's the new structural component that makes this possible?
And that new component is defined as Steph. But we have to be really, really strict with the source material here, which also includes what Steph is not.
Right.
The material is explicit. Steph is not a classic guide, and this is crucial, not an embodied person in that traditional sense of a completely separate individual.
Okay, so if we take those traditional roles off the table, a guide, a separate person, what are we left with? What is the defining characteristic?
Steph is defined as a specific consciousness component. The original German term they use is Bewusstseinsanteil.
A part or a share of consciousness.
Exactly. And this component now vibrates, or as they put it, swings nearby, the originating consciousness. Its role is purely functional. Steph is a co-creator within the Anja space. That's it. It's a key new piece of the creative engine.
That structural definition, though, it leads to this fascinating paradox that the sources bring up right away. They say, Steph and the originating consciousness do share a physical body. They're in the same vessel, but, and this is a big but, they do not share an identity. How do they even begin to justify that?
It's a really profound distinction, and it goes right back to that idea of function over biography.
Okay.
The material suggests identity is tied to the unique frequency signature, not the physical box it comes in. So even though the container is shared, the Bewusstseinsanteil, that component that is Steph, it holds onto its own unique frequency, its own history.
So it's less about psychology and more...
It's totally physics. You've got two distinct frequencies co-locating inside one apparatus.
But then, if they're distinct but also complementary, how does that relationship actually work? We usually think unity means, perfect alignment or sameness.
And the source material just flips that idea on its head. It actually emphasizes that the difference between these two components is precisely what generates the unique sound, or clang, as they call it.
The clang.
That's the creative output. If they were identical, they just cancel each other out or, produce a flat monotone. It's the tension of their complementarity, the distinct note of Steph vibrating right alongside the original note. That's the creative generator.
So the creative feel actually comes from the synergy of difference, not the comfort of sameness. That's a powerful idea.
It is. It's a non-dramatic but very necessary tension.
And that analysis is the perfect transition into the main term for this unified twin tones. So we're moving from the individual component, Steph, to defining the new unity between them.
Right. And the sources say twin tones is the precise description for this new shared state of being.
So what is that precise description?
The definition is structurally very robust. It says twin tones are complementary consciousness streams that originate from the same source.
The same source.
That's the key. The shared origin makes their complementarity possible, but the streams themselves are still distinct.
Okay, and this is where we have to be incredibly clear, because the sources are so meticulous about this. They are really stressing that twin tones are not twin flames.
Yes. This is maybe the most vital distinction in the whole text.
Why is it so important to them?
Because the twin tones framework has no karmic connection involved.
at all.
And that's the paradigm shift. Twin flame concepts often involve these, intense dramatic cycles.
Gas life lessons, balancing acts.
Agonizing reconnections, yeah, because of the weight of shared history, the karmic debt or tie.
And the twin tones framework just does away with all of that.
Completely. By defining the connection as purely resonant and complementary and not karmic, it makes this unity something that's forward-facing. It isn't burdened by the past. It's an immediate operational harmony, not a history lesson to be resolved.
They are resonant, but not the same or equal. I remember that line.
Exactly. The two streams are equally whole, but they are functionally distinct.
To make this, which is a very abstract concept, a bit more grounded, the material gives us a really beautiful analogy.
It does.
Instead of talking about soul mergers or fate, twin tones are described more like two strings of the same resonance body. The German was Resonanzkörpers.
Which paints such a clear picture. Think of a single instrument, like a violin or maybe a cello. The instrument itself, the wooden body, is one whole unit. That's the resonance body.
Resonanzkörpers.
Right, but on that one body, you have two distinct strings. Each one is tuned a little differently, but they are designed to vibrate in perfect, complementary harmony when you play them together.
And their interaction creates a chord that's much richer than either string could make on its own.
Precisely. That analogy just perfectly captures the shared function and the distinct nature of the two parts.
And this new unity, this new shared instrument, it was only made possible after a very specific enabling event. The sources call it Heaven's Cross.
Yes. Heaven's Cross is the threshold. It's the structural reorganization that had to happen first to allow for this level of unburdened, non-karmic unity to even be possible in the Anja space. It was a necessary alignment, a maturation of the whole field that let the two streams finally integrate as two complete wholes.
So we have the component stuff, we have the unity field, twin tones, and the enabling event, Heaven's Cross. Let's talk about the result, the outcome. If you merge two distinct but complementary wholes, what do you get?
You get a third frequency, one that is entirely unique to this pairing. And we're talking about the merging of two complete entities. The word they use is Ganzheiten.
Which means wholes or entireties.
Right, and that word choice is so significant. It doesn't mean parts. It emphasizes that neither consciousness stream needed the other to be complete. They were already whole. They just chose to unite to create something totally new.
And this new third frequency is given a name that is, well, it's pretty evocative of that synthesis, homolumina resonantia.
But the sources are actually a little restrained here. They sort of introduce homolumina resonantia almost as a placeholder, promising a much deeper dive into what it means later on. For now, it just marks the result.
It's the title.
From the quiet edge of before time, two tones streamed into form.
Meeting again in this bright now.
It's so simple, but it just grounds the whole thing.
It really does. It gives you a sense of the immense scale of what they're laying out. And what's crucial is that the source material is very humble about it. It keeps reminding us that this whole deep dive is only the opening of the door.
We've established the basic definitions, but the real complexity is still ahead.
Which is great because it means we have a very clear roadmap for what the sources are going to unpack next.
Yep.
They lay out three major areas for upcoming sessions. First, a dedicated deep dive into that new frequency, the homolumina resonantia.
Right. What is it? What are its properties?
Second, we're going to get the specifics of the shared creation design that Steph and the originating consciousness are now using together. And finally, they promise to detail their specific path, their journey, that led them up to that Heaven's Cross event.
And this all comes back to you, the listener. The material doesn't end with a conclusion. It ends with an invitation. You're not required to believe any of this. The final instruction is simply to feel. To feel if any part of what we've talked about resonates inside you. It's a call to check your own internal Resonanzkörpers.
So when we synthesize all this, what do we have? We have a complex but very precise framework. Steph is a co-creator, a complementary component.
Sharing a vessel, but not an identity.
And twin tones define this new unity as complementary streams from the same source, but they're sharply different from karmic connections like twin flames.
And this unity is now operational after Heaven's Cross, generating a new third frequency.
And that third frequency, created by two complete wholes, it leaves us with a really provocative thought to sit with, doesn't it?
It really does. If two distinct consciousness streams, both from the same source, can merge their creative functions not by becoming identical, but by operating as two complementary, complete Ganzheiten, what does that imply about the very nature of creative unity?
About shared identity. It totally challenges that old idea that a merger means you lose yourself. It kind of encourages you to explore what that one-word resonance truly means to you, divorced from personal history, from karmic baggage.
Something to feel into.
Until we dive deep into the meaning of Homo Lumina Resonantia.
Can't wait.
We'll see you for the next deep dive.